How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Runaway by R.L. Stine. This is from January 1997 and is part of the Fear Street series. I believe this is number 41. And this is the first Fear Street book that I've read. Growing up, I, like everybody, knew about R.L. Stine through Goosebumps, but I never got a chance to read those as a kid, and when I grew up and became more and more of a horror fan, R.L. Stine definitely felt like this huge hole in my horror pop culture knowledge, and I had been curious to read him for a while now. Obviously, fast forward years later to the near present, and Netflix puts out their series of Fear Street movies, and I thought they were pretty cool. Part 2, far and away the best of them. But that made me curious about the Fear Street books. I hadn't really heard much, if anything, about them, but to know that R.L. Stine made a series of books aimed at an older audience, I thought, okay, this seems interesting, and the idea that they all take place in the same city and all in some way have to do with the same street, I thought that was an interesting concept. And luckily, the Netflix movies did do well enough that we appear to have gotten a bunch of these new prints with new covers, and I believe they're a slightly larger size. And I do like when books get new prints. It makes it a lot easier for me to relatively cheaply pick up a bunch of entries in this franchise. And yeah, there are quite a few of these. And I know they did change out the artwork, and a lot of people like the old paintings. But that being said, the new covers are still pretty fun. They are kind of that modern book style, but they have a lot of the energy behind them, and there's more imagery than a lot of other modern covers. So yeah, I still think they're pretty cool. I did notice one bit of updating where the book's clearly set in the 90s, and then there's like one scene where a character pulls out an iPad. Please, don't do random little updates in books. I don't like that. I know What You Did Last Summer also did that. Just keep them the same. But anyway, so yeah, new printing and a new chance to read the books. So yeah, I bought up like 3 or 4 of these and randomly picked this one out of the bag, and from what I gather, one of the better ones, people say. I'll talk briefly about the plot. I won't be doing any major spoilers, but I'll tell you guys about the setup for this novel, and that will in turn lead me to talk about plot points, again, not in a spoilery way. We open up with this hitchhiker. Her name's Felicia, and she's run away from her hometown. You see, she has telekinetic powers, but in turn, she had been locked up in this lab, and she had to run away after an incident. But we're not initially told what the incident was, but apparently the government is looking for her, and she has to keep her head down. And I do like that the incident and subsequent pieces of her backstory are told in little pieces over the course of the novel. Anyway, the first guy in the novel that she tries to hitchhike with does turn out to be a bad dude, and that's where we get the cover image from. He literally almost runs her over by mistake. But the next guy, after the opening action sequence, is Nick. And Nick's a really nice guy, and she, of course, instantly falls in love with him, but tells herself, "You're a runaway. No connections. Do not get attached. You must be prepared to move at any moment." Well, after this, she runs into a good bit of luck. She overhears some college kids talk about how they're supposed to cat sit for their professor, but they want to ditch it and go party. So she lies about being a family friend of the professor and manages to get the job from them. This will, of course, get her some money, a place to stay, and also a cat friend, which is always really nice. But of course, the professor's house is on Fear Street, Yeah, I am kind of curious. I don't know how much continuity there is between the novels. When one of the characters hears Fear Street later, they're like, oh no, that place. But I mean, there's like, what, 60 of these books or something? How long is Fear Street? And are all the characters of the books like neighbors with one another? I would be curious to see what this continuity gets like over the course of reading more books. Like I said, this is my first one. But anyway, after that, she enrolls in high school, which was a bit of a surprise. I was like, why would she want to do that? But apparently she really is desperate to try to get her life back to normal. Personally, me growing up in high school, everyone was half insane and it was like a prison over there. I would not want to do this, but, props to her for trying to get her life relatively back to normal. She, of course, runs into Nick at the high school, and Nick will get her a job where he works at the Burger Basket. And yeah, secretly enrolling into high school and getting a job when you're supposed to be on the run from the government. Life was much simpler back in the 1990s, and I definitely miss it. But anyway, at the Burger Basket, she meets a character, Zan, who it turns out is Nick's girlfriend. So we have ourselves a classic romantic triangle, but Zan appears to have a little bit of a dark streak, and maybe it's good to make sure that you're on her friendly side because, yeah, she can be, it sounds like a little bit of a Wednesday Addams. So you don't want to mess with her, but boy, does she have a super big crush on Nick. But don't mess with Zan and don't make connections. Be ready to move. However, speaking of being ready to move, she gets a few mysterious messages. The first in her locker that hint that someone knows who she really is and maybe someone has found her. So a hint of danger, and now she's constantly going, do I run or do I stay? And it's this sort of battle to want to keep the new life that she's built for herself here, but knowing that someone's after her, and there's a bit of a mystery plot as well. Overall, this novel is definitely one that has kind of aged really well as far as what people are interested in. Doing a super-powered horror story is definitely something that has gotten a lot bigger with Stranger Things. Now, this was obviously written well before Stranger Things, and other people had covered the superpower escape from a lab type horror story before. Think Stephen King predominantly with Firestarter, but also Carrie was superpowered horror as well. And then in movies, think something like Scanners, which is a really good movie. Definitely will blow your mind there. So there had been superpowered horror before, and he did a book in that genre. From what I gather, Stine really does like paying homage to big genres. But do this book, and then get the Netflix crowd coming back over to your books because of the Fear Street movies, and the Netflix crowd also knows Stranger Things, and that really does help you out. So from what I gather, this is one of the books that's recommended if you're coming over from the Netflix movies to get a taste of Fear Street, because it is something that a lot of the Netflix crowd would be interested in. And let's talk about the pros with this. First, I want to say a really quick read. It's a relatively thin book, and I kind of feel like with Stine's stuff, it almost feels more like an episodic TV show than like a big, thick novel. And I know there is some people in the book crowd that, gush over big, thick books. And don't get me wrong, I do like those too. But I always felt that short novels don't always get the credit they deserve, going in for a good little short story and, coming out as this fun, quick little experience. I do like novellas, I do like short stories, and this book, it can be read pretty quickly. I read it pretty much over the course of 2 days. in only a couple hours. I think a quick read of this, you could even probably read it in less than two, and a nice, slow, leisurely read, I'd be surprised if it took you more than five. So, a good, quick, in and out, fun adventure, and I really do like the main character. Felicia is a good protagonist, doing things like secretly moving into a new town and secretly trying to set up your new life with very little resources. I thought that was a really compelling idea. You know, sneaking into someone's house because you stole someone's cat sitting job and living there and hoping no one notices you. That's really cool. And then trying to get a job in a new school, you know, all without knowing that you're the outsider, you know, the secret person that's not supposed to be there. That's really cool. And then knowing that it's not necessarily going to be permanent, and liking this new life, but knowing it could crumble at any minute, you know? Reminders of the past, and then, you know, even, you know, like Nick with his past with Zan being there, all these things keeping you from getting this nice new life that you really want. And I do like that kind of sneaky stuff. Plus the mystery of what happened to her at the laboratory, and every now and then getting a few chapters of the past, finding out about the horrible incident and finding out why she had to run. I do like that that was doled out throughout the book. And also, superpowers are fun, aren't they? The idea that she doesn't have control, and if she's angry or frightened, she might have to work hard to suppress the powers, and if she can't, how can she shoot out the energy in a way that won't be noticed and won't hurt anybody? You know, it's an interesting idea. And then, of course, if you need the powers, how strong are you really, and how good at controlling them are you really? It's, like I said, superpowers are fun. But anyway, a few of the cons of this book, and I do have to mention, it's really more the things that it focused on not being what I'd exactly prefer. And there is sort of, like, a lot of this book is about the love triangle, and I'm not super big into romance, you know, and stuff like that. And a large part of this is you go looking at the book and going, hey, come on, Nick, why are you still with Zan? She's really not good for you. You need to grow up and break up with her. And that does take up a whole lot of, I want to say screen time, but I guess it's page time. And that does eat into the plot more than I'd like it to. And also, there is like a mystery and shady side, and the mystery with her past, and I really did prefer the lab stuff more. The shady side stuff was still good, but it was most of the book, and I wish this was more sci-fi lab stuff than it turned out to be. Like, for example, there's a really cool villain, evil doctor, who is not in the book near as much as I'd hoped. So yeah, I do wish it was more of the sci-fi elements. Now that being said, even though they're downplayed for a lot of the book, I won't spoil it, but they do pay off at the end. You do get to see a lot of stuff with the powers at the end, and I am glad that they did get their time in the sun, because like I said, that's the most interesting part. But that being said, you know, it is a short book, so yeah, you know, how much can you really fit in there in only like 160 pages or so? So it did all pay out in the end. So yeah, even though it spent some time focusing on things I didn't care as much about, I did like the main character. I did like her secretly setting up her runaway life and knowing that it could crumble at any minute. And like I said, superpowers are fun as well. So I really did like a lot of this book and the cool sci-fi stuff. And yeah, from what I gather, what people have said, this is a pretty good book to start out with for Fear Street. You know, it's talking about a subgenre that's really popular amongst the Netflix crowd, and from what I gather, it is one of the better ones as well. So yeah, I had fun with this. A fun, quick read. Pretty much just, you know, quick, read it over 2 days. in and out fun adventure, you know? So I am curious about more of the Fear Street stuff. I actually did pick up the next one, Secret Admirer. That's the next one I'm going to be reading. I've already dug into that a little bit, and it does seem pretty fun as well, so I will get to another one of these pretty soon. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my R.L. Stine playlist. I actually have reviews for all 3 of the Fear Street movies, as well as reviews for issues of his new comic, Stuff of Nightmares, which seems to be a new comic anthology series he's doing. I hope we get a lot of that. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. R.L. Stine playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.